All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down a topic that's becoming more and more common, both in your final exams and in the real world. Handling a patient with a left ventricular assist device, an LVAD, for non-cardiac surgery. This is a complex scenario, but we're going to master it together.
So why is this so critical? Well, to get a sense of the scale here, you have to understand that heart failure is a huge global problem. We're talking about over 64 million people affected worldwide, and for those with end-stage heart failure, things can look pretty bleak.
And this is where the LVAD has been a total game changer. At its core, it's a mechanical pump that does the work of the failing left ventricle. As you can see here, it pulls blood from the LV, sends it through the pump, and pushes it back out into the aorta, restoring blood flow to the entire body. It's an amazing piece of technology.
Okay, let's make this real. You walk in tomorrow morning, you look at the list, and there it is, a patient with an LVAD. What do? What are the absolute must-know steps to keep them safe? That's exactly what we're about to walk through, step by step.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the device itself and what makes these patients unique. Then we'll move into the pre-op assessment, the delicate balancing act you'll face intra-op, and why the right ventricle is the secret hero of this story. We'll also cover crisis management, and then wrap it all up with the key things you need to ace your exams.
Okay, let's dive right in. Look, you can't safely manage what you don't understand, so first we have to get a handle on the fundamental principles of how this device actually works. If you only remember one single thing from this entire explainer, make it this sentence. Seriously, burn this into your brain. This is the absolute mantra of LVAD management. Every single decision you make about fluids, about pressors, about ventilation, it all comes back to this one simple fact. The pump needs volume coming in, that's the preload dependency, and it struggles against resistance pushing out. That's the afterload sensitivity.
And the technology itself has come a long, long way. We started with these big, clunky first-gen devices that gave a pulsatile flow. Then we moved to the second-gen continuous flow pumps, like the HeartMate 2. But now, the third-gen devices, like the HeartMate 3, are just a massive leap. They've got these magnetically levitated rotors that are gentler on blood cells, and big trials have shown this leads to way fewer complications like pump thrombosis.
So how do we apply these principles to our actual management plan? Well, a good outcome starts way before the patient ever hits the operating table. The pre-op assessment is absolutely everything.
Your usual pre-op check gets a few really important upgrades. Of course, you do your standard airway and comorbidity assessment. But then you have to get the LVAD-specific history. What kind of pump is it? Why did they get it? Have they had issues? And most importantly, you have to obsess over their volume status and how well their right ventricle is working. Also, keep an eye out for anemia. It's super common. And my best advice? Get the LVAD coordinator on the phone early. Don't try to be a hero and do this alone.
Anticoagulation. This is a classic exam question, right? These patients are almost always on warfarin. The logic is pretty straightforward. For a low bleed risk surgery, you might just continue it. For something with a high risk of bleeding, you're going to have to stop it and probably bridge with heparin. And in a true emergency, you reverse. But here's the key. You never make that decision in a vacuum. You always call the patient's specialist LVAD center first.
All right, we're in the theater. This is where it all comes together. That mantra, preload dependent, afterload sensitive, is now your minute-to-minute reality. It is a constant, delicate balancing act.
The very first challenge you'll face is with your monitors. See, because these modern pumps give you continuous flow, there's often no pulse, and that means your standard tools can really fool you. That blood pressure cuff? Basically useless. It's just not going to give you a reliable number. The pulse oximeter might not give you a nice waveform, but the number itself can sometimes still be accurate. So, how do we get information we can actually trust?
We have to get invasive. An arterial line isn't optional. It's mandatory. It's the only way to get a true mean arterial pressure, or MAP. A central line is also key for watching CVP and giving potent drugs. A transesophageal echo, a TE, is your best friend because it lets you see exactly what the heart is doing in real time. And don't forget the controller. It's giving you a constant stream of data, pump speed, flow, power, and the pulsatility index, which tells you a lot about the patient's volume status.
So you've got your arterial line in. What number are you aiming for? This is it. This is your sweet spot. You want to keep that MAP between 60 and 80 millimeters of mercury. If you let it drop too low, you risk starving the organs of blood. But if you let it creep up too high, especially over 90, you're dramatically increasing the afterload on the pump, and that raises the risk of some really bad stuff, like stroke.
You know, it's funny. It's called a left ventricular assist device, but the success of this whole system really depends on the right ventricle. The RV is the true unsung hero of this story. Think about it. It has to pump every single drop of blood that the LVAD needs. If the RV fails, the LVAD gets starved to preload, and the whole system goes down.
And inside the operating room, there are so many things that can cause the RV to fail. High pressures from our ventilator, low oxygen levels, high CO2, acidosis, basically all the things we hate to see in any patient are 10 times worse here. Each one of these can crank up the pressure in the pulmonary arteries, which puts a massive strain on the RV and can quickly lead to its failure.
So what do you do when things go south? The alarms are blaring, the numbers look bad. Let's talk about the two biggest crises you have to be ready to manage in a heartbeat.
The most common emergency you'll see is something called a suction event. It's exactly what it sounds like. It happens when there's not enough preload. Maybe the patient is bleeding or the RV has failed. The pump doesn't know this. It just keeps trying to suck blood. But the ventricle is empty, so it collapses down on the inflow cannula, blocking it off. This will set off a low flow alarm, and the patient's blood pressure will plummet.
Your response has to be fast and automatic. It's a simple 3-step process. First, give volume. Fast, get fluid in to fill up the tank. Second, figure out why this happened and fix it. Are they bleeding? Is the RV in trouble? And third, you have to turn down the pump speed. Back off the RPMs to stop the suction and give the ventricle a chance to fill back up.
And then there's the worst-case scenario. The patient is unresponsive. There's a specific algorithm for this, and you need to know it. Now, your first instinct in any arrest is to start chest compressions, right? Here, you have to fight that urge. Compressions are a really bad idea because you could easily dislodge the pump's cannula. You only, and I mean only, start chest compressions if you are absolutely sure the LVAD has failed and the MAP stays below 50. It's a last resort.
Whew. Okay, that was a lot. So let's boil it all down. To wrap this up for your exam prep, here are the absolute high-yield must-know points.
Got your pen ready? Here we go. 1. Remember the mantra, preload dependent, afterload sensitive. 2. The RV is king. Protect it at all costs. 3. Your MAP goal is 60 to 80. 4. An art line is not a luxury. It's mandatory. 5. Avoid spinal or epidural anesthesia. The vasodilation is just too risky. 6. For a suction event, remember volume, find the cause, and turn down the speed. And 7. In a cardiac arrest, compressions are a late intervention.
And just for your reference, the information in this explainer was built on a fantastic tutorial called Anesthetic Considerations for Patients with Left Ventricular Assist Device undergoing non-cardiac surgery. It's a really great resource.
And so I'll leave you with this final thought. As these LVADs get even smaller, even smarter, and more widespread, how do you think our job is going to change? What will we need to do differently in the operating room to keep making surgery safer and safer for this unique group of patients?